Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome aboard. Now, I'm sorry to say that the other David's not able to join us today. I'm afraid he's not feeling up to it. I did speak to him earlier, and at 1 o'clock he was good to go. By 2 o'clock, I'm afraid he was knackered. Absolutely done. Now, he said to me that he went to his bed about midnight last night, slept right through to 1 o'clock this afternoon, and by 2 o'clock this afternoon, he was done for. As I said to him, don't worry about it, David. I'll explain it to the audience. It's a process. It's a process of getting better. And we'll take it at his pace. So I'm afraid it's me again today. So today's show will be done in the style of Andy Truck Davey. So let's get this broadcast underway, shall we? Although for some reason I'm not getting figures for how many people are watching on YouTube today. Oh, unusual. I can see how many is on Facebook at the moment. There's 24 and climbing. But for some reason I'm not getting the numbers on resting today for YouTube. Well, maybe it'll pop up at some point during the broadcast. Right, so it's Andy Truck Davey out the truck, not home, in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where at the moment it is clear, but the forecast says cloudy, 16 degrees. Now that's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather is like where you are, look out your own bloody windy and maybe drop a wee comment in the comments to let me know how the weather is where you are. Okay, so let's move on. Well, I'm happy day after GERS Day, everyone. Okay, the annual bollocks drawn up by the Scotland office and then published by the Scottish Government is upon us. It would appear our nominal deficit has gone up to 22 point something odd billion. We'll get into it in a minute, all right. And that was for 19.6 odd billion. Now, why is it that when you read about this nominal deficit that Scotland has, that it's always, since 2014 anyway, it's always been a nominal deficit? Well, for a start, it's fictional. Scotland has no deficit and has no debt. And Scotland has a booming economy with falling unemployment, balance of trade surplus, and is 22.8% of the UK economy when you add in oil and gas and food and drink. 8.4% of the UK population is 22.8% of the UK economy when you add in oil and gas and food and drink exports for Scotland. And apparently we've got a £22 billion deficit. Well, it's a nominal deficit, and it's a nominal deficit because it is our allocated share of the debt produced by Westminster while we are in the Union. But anybody that's read the Treaty of Union will know that we only take a nominal share of that debt while we're in the Union. When the Union ends, our obligation to service that nominal debt also ends. But there's some right bollocks in it. There really is. So let's get into it, shall we? What does it bloody well say this time round? Well, we'll take the Telegraph's take on it this time, okay? And the headlines are fucking cracker. It tells you exactly how stupid these people think we are. And the headline: public spending gap in Scotland with rest of UK rises to record level. Now, let me make that quite clear. That's down to political choices. That is down to our government's choices to spend more on public services, on things like free prescriptions and things like that. Anyway, let's get into it. The gap between public spending in Scotland and the rest of the UK has surged to record levels, according to official figures showing each person north of the border gets more than £2,400 extra spent on them than what they'd get if they were living in elsewhere in the UK. And that's bloody well true. But as I say, that's because our government chooses to spend more on public services and chooses to make things like medicine free at the point of need, higher education tuition free. That is true, but it's not as if the UK is financing it. And as for this nominal deficit, doesn't fucking exist. And what we get back for the Treasury, remember, Scotland's a net a contributor to the Treasury. So what we get back, it's we're in fucking money. It's as simple as that. It's we're in money. Anyway, let's carry on. The difference of 2,417 is by far the largest on record, with the gap surging from £2,136 the previous year, and it's almost doubled since 2021. The figure then was 1,376. That's right. We've had a pandemic. We've spent a fucking fortune on health, and coming out of the pandemic, we've spent a fucking fortune making sure we remain healthy. Right, anyway, in Scotland, because of our more progressive tax system, we actually contribute via income tax to the Scottish government £60 more per head in tax revenues. That bolstered the Scottish budget by 1.7 billion last year, and that's what covers an awful lot of the extras. Now, but what happens is the block grant that we get, the Scottish government chooses how to spend it, and they spend 51% of it on public services. Whereas in England and Wales and Northern Ireland, the government only spends 44.7% of what they've got down there, and they've got the Treasury, they can print whatever they fucking want, and the Bank of England, they can print whatever they want. They only spend that on public services. So, of course, we have better public services. It's no rocket science. Anyway, I mean, apparently the country's deficit, the difference between total revenue and expenditure, equated to 10.4% of GDP, but that was when you took out oil and gas. Now, apparently revenues from oil and gas have fallen. Apparently they've fallen from 7.9 billion to 4.4 billion, and that's due to, they've fallen from 11 odd billion to 7.9 billion, and that is due to a drop in oil prices, I believe. Now, what they don't tell you here, but if you get into the actual GERS figures, revenues from oil and gas for the year 2023-2024 that went to the UK Treasury by the normal route was 88.9 billion. Scotland only got a per capita share of 7.9 billion. They talk about a £20 billion deficit, a £22 billion deficit. Scotland was independent. It wouldn't be 7.9 billion of oil and gas revenues for the North Sea coming to Scotland. It would be 88.9. But hold on, there's a wee bit more to it than that, because there is an area out there in the North Sea called the Other Region. And that's where oil and gas that doesn't hit these shores and goes away to be refined in Norway, to be refined in the Netherlands, and to be refined in England, or what goes in tankers straight out to refineries around the world. That was another 49 billion in revenues went to the Westminster Treasury, but none of that is accredited to Scotland. Now, they're talking about a deficit when you take away oil and gas. Oil and fucking, if we were independent, we'd get the whole 89 fucking billion pound. That's twice the budget we get right now for fucking Westminster to run our whole fucking country. How thick do they think we are? Anyway, folks, let's carry on, shall we? What other bollocks is in it? Scottish public sector revenue grew by 1.9% in 23-24 to 88.5 billion income, 4 billion coming from energy as well, other forms of energy. You know. Now they then going to talk about Scotland's more progressive tax rate, but they bemoan the fact that we're quite happy to actually pay through our income tax system an extra £60 a year, or for me maybe a wee bit more. What the fuck? I know how much more I pay. I pay £4 a week more than what under the Scottish income tax system than what I would under the UK wide income tax system. £4 a week. That's a cup of fucking coffee. If £4 a week means we Mrs. McGlumford and their kids get free medicine at the point of need, I'm in. That's the whole fucking point of government. But anyway, you know, I think you don't need to believe me that this stuff is bollocks. As you know, I used to do an in-depth on this stuff every fucking year, but I get up now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the final word on the GERS figures this year to Professor Richard Murphy. Now, he's a tax expert and economist down in England, and he has no skin in the fucking game. But we'll let Mr. Murphy, for the next 3 minutes, explain what GERS are, okay? And for the viewers in England, they'll get a laugh at this one, okay? So let's see what Professor Murphy has got to say about the GERS this year. Now, he does one of these every year, but this is this year's version. Okay, here we go. Sorry, you on Facebook, you're just going to have to listen to the sound.
GERS Day is the day in the year when the Scottish Government publishes what is called the Government Expenditure and Revenue Statement for Scotland for 2023-24. This statement supposedly shows the overall state of the public finances in Scotland, and let me assure you, it does not do anything like that. GERS is a complete misrepresentation of the truth when it comes to accounting. Why is that? Because of a number of assumptions that are built within this. First of all, whilst the revenue for Scotland is that which is supposedly paid in Scotland, whilst we do, of course, know what is collected by the Scottish Revenue Authority on income tax, and we do, of course, know what is collected by local authorities in Scotland, many of the figures have to be apportioned from UK figures as a whole, and as a consequence, they are guesswork. Now, it so happens that the guesswork this year shows that overall, taxes paid per person in Scotland are bigger than overall taxes paid per person in the rest of the UK. So you could say, great news. Well, take North Sea out of that and the equation moves slightly in favour of the UK. But overall, that sounds great, except for the fact we simply don't know that half those numbers are right, and we don't see the detailed workings. All we get is a 40-page explanatory note. But worse is the expenditure side of the revenue, because if there's good news when it comes to income, there's bad news when it comes to expenditure, and there always is in GERS. The expenditure has gone up more in Scotland, apparently, than it has in the rest of the UK, although my quick review of the data cannot really explain that. Mysteriously, Scotland pays a very large part of the UK's national cost of debt, and it has a very high cost for social protection, which may be true, but that's because inequality in Scotland is higher, and that's the consequence of the UK government trying to do nothing about it, or to help the Scottish government to do anything about it. And that's exactly true as well with regard to healthcare, which is also expensive in Scotland for precisely the same reasons. In other words, the responsibility for that high expenditure is not down to the Scottish government. It's down to the fact that not enough money has been given to solve these problems from the UK government over many years. When there is greater inequality in Scotland than we should see if the UK government was trying to tackle that issue. So, does this tell us anything useful? 3 things. 1, because every authority in Scotland that is reflected in this statement has to balance its budgets, the entire responsibility for any deficit that is shown by GERS does rest with the UK government and them alone. The Scottish government need take no blame at all. Second, we still have to question why the SNP is producing this data, which is complete nonsense. It shouldn't be doing so. It should be producing proper statistics reflecting what really happens in Scotland, and I wish it would do that. And third, it's time to stop feeding the unionists this sort of drivel that makes them feel very excited by the fact that Scotland is apparently running a deficit twice as high as the rest of the UK, which is the inevitable consequence of the UK government not spending enough in Scotland to improve its economy when it's pouring money into the southeast of England and is planning to do so even more under the new Labour government. GERS is a statement of how badly Scotland is treated inside the UK as a consequence. It provides no evidence as to what Scotland's finances would be like if it was independent. Let's put GERS to bed once and for all. It is misinformation, and we now know how dangerous that is. What we want is proper information that shows how Scotland is really faring, and GERS isn't that.
So, sorry, Facebook, hopefully somebody put a link into the comments on Facebook, but Professor Richard Murphy's take on it. Okay, as I say, I used to break it down figure by figure. I mean, I haven't looked, but I mean, if we look at the 2022, 21, 22 figures, I mean, there was an accountancy adjustment for which Westminster charged the Scottish government £5 billion. Fuck's sake. Yeah. Right, so that's the GERS figures done to death, folks. Let's move on. Shona Robertson, Scotland's Finance Minister, put stop to all future projects as it becomes clear that under Labour, the cuts to the Scottish budget will be more than the 5% year on year for the term for the life of this term of the Scottish Parliament will be much worse. So much for Labour being the change that Scotland needs. But what does that mean, folks? It means because of Rachel Reeves' approach and her claim of an additional £22 billion black hole this year. This year alone, by the way. That things like rolling out free school meals to primary 5 to primary 7s will be kicked into the long grass. The universal winter heating for the pensioners here in Scotland, like for the pensioners in England, will also have to go because that money's not coming up here anymore via ballot consequentials. In fact, when you go right through the public services and the cuts that Rachel Reeves is talking about, and the binning of infrastructure programmes that Rachel Reeves is talking about, it also means that Scotland's capital budget will be cut. Infrastructure budget will be cut. The whole fucking lot. They'll then have to look at things like, can we continue to afford free prescriptions? Can we continue to afford the baby box? Can we continue to afford free travel for the 12 to 23-year-olds? Can we continue to afford free dental for the under 25s? Can we continue to afford free eye tests for everybody? That's where we're going here. This is the change that Scotland needs. Is it Labour? Somebody ought to find Anna Sarwar and have a fucking word with him. The change that Scotland needs. Austerity on stilts. And a nominal deficit, which is a bigger share of the UK debt than what we should actually have, of £20 billion, and unionists rubbing their horns in glee because we actually spend our bare money, money on public services. And they're claiming it's because of the broad shoulders of the United Kingdom. When you have a look at the figures on revenues for oil and gas and realise that Scotland's only getting £7 billion out of it, but the rest of the £88 billion is staying in fucking England. Thick as mince that people get what they vote for. And they're about to fucking learn what the change that Scotland needs is. And it ain't fucking devolution. And it ain't fucking Labour. It's independence. Because that 20 billion deficit disappears. Scotland, I can guarantee anybody watching this, will start as an independent country, debt-free. And with an annual income of 80 odd billion pound for oil and gas alone, even though that will become less and less as we transition. That's not including what we make from the private sector and what we make in the public sector and all round taxation, because we don't have these figures as Professor Murphy has fucking pointed out. But here we have the Scottish Government having to put a stop to infrastructure programmes, welfare programmes, fucking everything. And as Mr. Murphy has explained, much more eloquently than I can, it's down to poor decision making and bad running of the UK economy down that fucking road. And as Davies just pointed out, the reason why it's a nominal deficit is because it doesn't fucking exist. Scotland has no debt, it runs no debt. Legally, we have to balance the budget. The Scottish Government, our local authorities legally have to balance their budgets too. And the borrowing ability of the Scottish Government is fucking none. And what little it can borrow, it borrows for the Treasury, so it's borrowing for its fucking self. Well, as I say, that's the joys. People voted to stay in this union, people voted for devolution, and knew they were stupid enough to vote for Mary the fucking same, if no worse. Woofed. And Shona Robertson was also asked if she could tell how many pensioners in Scotland will be affected by the end of the universal payment of winter fuel payments here in Scotland. And Miss Robertson tells me she couldn't tell them. So I thought I would do the fucking groundwork for her. It wasn't a hard sum to do. According to the OBR, the IFS, and the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, 10 million pensioners will lose their winter payment. So let's take a per capita share of that 10 million pensioners to be here in Scotland, because they're talking about UK-wide. So that'd be 140,000 people who will lose the winter payment here in Scotland. And just so that our Finance Minister Shona Robertson knows, if she wants to know how many people in Scotland will keep that winter fuel payment because they're on pension credit, well, the LBR, the IFS, and the Joseph Rowntree Foundation tells us that only 1 million out of 11 million people will get to keep that winter fuel payment. So a per capita share of that here in Scotland would be 84,000. So there you go, Finance Minister. Done the sums for you. For fuck's sake. Wasn't it hard? Jesus. Wasn't it fucking rocket science? Well, there you go, a wee bit of number crunching for the Finance Minister, because she couldn't answer the question after the top of her head. Oofed. Okay. This one's a cracker, eh? The UK government has now issued licences for the building of superhighways for renewable energy and other energy to go from the north of Scotland to England to distribute the energy boom that's coming here in Scotland to England. Now, the way this will go, as you know, there'll be interconnectors, and then the subsea cable will be hooked up to those interconnectors. The interconnector will be joined to a bigger part of the grid here in Scotland online. Wow, thanks, Mr. E. That is mental. Thank you very much, Mr. E. We have £50 super chat. Thank you very much, guys. You're so generous. And we'll get Duncan with a £20 super chat. And we'll put that up, because it seems to say something. Was going to buy David Morgan a bunch of grapes and a get well soon card, but decided to put the money to the food banks. And I think David would appreciate that. Of course he would, Duncan. Thank you very much. Excellent, folks. Thanks very much. Anyway, where were we? The energy superhighway, which they're building, one on the west coast and one on the east coast. You know, this is a time when the Scottish Government can have a lot of fun. Now, how will this be funded? Well, mostly it will be funded by SSE and Scottish Power, because the main part of it will be here in Scotland. So, because they two companies own the national grid here in Scotland. All right. But, I mean, the Scottish Government could have a lot of fucking fun with this one. So they could, because the substations for the interconnectors are going to be built on land. And just Westminster upsets them. When SSE and Scottish Power apply to the local authorities for planning permission, and the Scottish Government just pulls in the planning permission and fucks about with them. No, but let them build it. Let them build it. Because the off switch will always be fucking here. Because this is where the energy's coming from. So when it comes to gaining independence, if they want to fuck about when it comes to trade, if they want to fuck about, we'll just turn the energy off and watch the fucking lights go off down that road. Be quite funny. Rather than sorting out their own grid situation and building their own capacity, the lazy fuckers tend to take yours. And the worst it is, there'll be no benefit to the Scottish public. There'll be no benefit to the UK public as a whole, except for the lights are still on. All revenues will be taken by Westminster and private companies. And here in Scotland, we already pay more for energy than any other part of the UK because of paying costs to the grid for our energy providers. Costs more for energy here in Scotland, the biggest producer of energy in the UK, than what it does in London. But as I say, let them build it. They need the energy. We'll have the on and off switch. Fucking simple as that. Anytime there's any messing around for that mob down that road, well, whether we're in the union or out, that on and off switch is fucking here. And that'll be enough to keep them a wee bit more honest going forward, I hope. It'll take 7, 8, 10 years to build it. We'll go through a couple of Scottish administrations. But there you go. Right, this is another cracker. Chief of Police of Scotland gives us an update on Operation Branchform. Oh, fucking wonderful. So what's she saying? Well, she tells Sky that it's an ongoing investigation and that it'll take as long as it takes. She's then asked if it's been so slow because of political interference, and the Chief of Police, Paul, I think her name is, she tells him, no, there's no political interference, none whatsoever. Police Scotland are totally independent. The Crown Office is totally independent again. So there's no political interference. And it'll just take as long as it takes. And I thought, is that right, is it? You're 1.3 million quid and fuck knows how many hours of manpower into this. Thanks, John. Hope you and Edith are well. Aye, I hope so too, John. That by 2026, those that voted Labour will have learnt their fucking lesson. But you never know. Anyway, so Pollock, the Chief of Police, says I'll take as long as it takes. So this inquiry started in 2021. This is 2024. I think it's time for an inquiry into why this fucking inquiry is still ongoing. So keyboard warriors, you know what to do. Time to start firing fucking emails at the Crown Office and at Police Scotland to ask them why the fuck is it taking so long? Why haven't they hired a forensic fucking a forensic accountant to get through this? This is nuts. Anyway, class action, thanks for that. What does it say here? After Scottish Indy, I want the position created called the keeper of the light switch. It sounds like a planned class action. We'll make it a government role. All they do is watch what's going on down south, and if they piss us off, then being the keeper of the light switch, yeah, he gives a call to the power stations and says, shut it down. Class action. Anyway, so apparently this will take as long as it takes. So we're 3 years in. The books were published. Anybody could have a look at them. They're not that complicated, they're not that long. And neither should this inquiry have been. A forensic accountant could have looked at voting this in about 10 fucking minutes. So as I say, keyboard warriors, time to start asking questions of the Chief of Police here in Scotland and of the Crown Office here in Scotland. Are they dragging this out to after the 2026 fucking election? The way they dragged it out for this one? Unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. Right, let's move down that road and see what's going on down that road. Rachel Reeves makes it clear in an interview on Sky that it is tax rises in October. She's then quizzed what taxes will be raised, what taxes will go up, and she tells them, I'm not writing a budget here in the show. You'll find out come October. Fair news. Let's hope they're a wee bit better and doing things properly, like announcing these things to the Parliament rather than the press. But so there are tax rises coming in October, and then of course the Bank of England, it kicks in and all. And along with the new set of idiots and financial incompetence in Westminster, let's try to create a fucking deeper recession. Interest rates of inflation rates were up 0.2%, so what puts any more cuts the interest rate on hold. Throw tax rises into the mix, and of course, your ordinary punter on the street has got less disposable income. As we have a market economy, as I keep explaining to these fucking idiots, less disposable income means a shrinking fucking market because nobody's getting any money to spend into that market. Wow. So, interest rates are not coming down as fast as what people would like. So, with interest rates still quite high at 5%, that means that people are not buying houses, so there's no recovery in the housing market. And people, and business people especially, are no borrowing to invest. The economy is flatlining. We are in a technical recession, but we're not actually in a recession, apparently. But high interest rates, high tax, less disposable income, less people are going to get to, going to have to spend into the economy. Unless, of course, the tax rises, when they come, don't affect Joe Public and only affect those with plenty. Because, as we've spoke about the difference between money and wealth before, those who are really wealthy, they don't really hoard a lot of money, they hoard a lot of assets. And it's not as easy to shift assets around as what it is to shift money around. So these are the people who are going to be taxed. But will it be the super rich who get taxed? But we know it's not going to be. Because according to Rachel Reeves, there won't be any tax rises on the rich. According to her, there won't be any tax rises on Joe Public either. Yet here she is telling us that there'll be tax rises in October. Yeah, well, this ride's about to get fucking bumpier, folks. Buckle up. The new set of idiots in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, and the band ports for the Bank of England, exactly what they're doing. Why they're doing it, I'm not quite sure, because I keep shouting growth, 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 growth. You're not growing your internal market if nobody's got any fucking spend into it. And we've already left all the external market. We've left the fucking biggest external market we had. There's no growth we had in this economy. And there's certainly not going to be if interest rates stay that high. And if taxes keep going up because people won't have disposable income to spend into the market economy. This isn't fucking rocket science. It just isn't. Woof. So tax rises are coming and interest rates don't seem to be going down, folks. Any drop in interest rate and this side of the year, the year, I doubt it very much. So, I mean, between the two of them, the Westminster Government, the Bank of England, they are causing a deeper recession. So this will go for a technical recession into a deeper recession, folks. This is an economy that will be contracting. Right, anyway, more bad news. As pharmacies and the NHS try to stockpile drugs before the end of the month. You know why? Well, custom checks come in at the end of August on pharmaceuticals. The Sarah's already been warned that for some of the medicine she's taking to help moderate her really absolutely mental menopause, she's been warned that she'll need to order them way in advance. So rather than phone the doctor up, you only got a couple of patches and a couple of tablets left, being told phone 10-15 days before, because it might take 10 to 15 days to get these pharmaceuticals that she's on because of the checks that are coming in. So things could be getting worse on the health front, folks. Now bear in mind that as we come into this winter, we're also talking food shortages because farmers are producing less, 20% less actually. Because of Brexit, they don't have the labour to bring in the harvest. So they're only planting what they can harvest. Why would you plant stuff to let it rot in the ground? That's just an expensive waste of time and money. So, this is going to be a winter of discontent. We know that we're producing less food and it's harder to get it in, and we don't produce all the drugs that we need. A lot of them come in from Europe, and that's going to be harder. We'll go to the end of the queue when it comes to getting drugs because they'll sell into the European market first, and then they'll wait until there's a big enough order for the UK to make it worthwhile packing lorries and sending them to the UK because of the fucking hassle with the paperwork and things like that created by Brexit. So there you go, folks. We'll get problems coming this winter. Then, of course, the pressures that's going to be on the NHS right across these islands this winter are going to be much greater because a lot of our elderly friends won't be able to heat their house or eat properly, and that means a lot more people becoming ill, and that's going to be exacerbated by drug shortages. This Brexit malarkey's gone well, eh? Right, new education minister down that road. Bridget Phillipson rules out increases to tuition fee, saying that it would be fees, saying it would be counterproductive. Wow. Well done. Could there actually be a minister of education down that road that actually fucking gets it? In order to have a successful economy, you need a well-educated population. You also need a healthy population. That's why we spend so much up here on public services. Because our health and education ministers up here get it. That a healthy, well-educated population is a productive population. But it would appear that we've got an education minister down that road that actually fucking gets it. Let's hope budget constraints don't constrain any ambition she has to help improve the situation in England. A better educated population wouldn't have seen people rioting in the fucking streets. They wouldn't have been able to gaslight them into thinking that immigration's bad and the UK is being fucking invaded. Just wouldn't be able to gaslight people like that. Yeah, well. Right. This one's a cracker and all. I mean, this new UK government that says it's going to be fiscally responsible, been throwing about money like fucking sweeties. 25% pay rise for the doctors. 5% right across the public sector. Now they're offering 14% to train drivers to end the strike. Fiscally responsible. Seem to be throwing fucking money about like sweeties when it comes to paying the public sector. It would appear that Miss Reeves is creating a 22 billion fucking pound black hole in this year's finances. No curing one. But that'll have an impact here in Scotland. Fortunately, there will be bad consequences for that. How much? Fuck knows. But it would appear that there is a fucking magic money tree. Now, normally the magic money tree only works for government corruption and war. But it would appear that Labour's going to use that magic money tree to pay people in the public sector. And that's a good idea. As we see up here, because we've invested in the public sector, it's producing £88.7 billion for the Treasury. So if they invest in the public sector down there the way we've invested in it here, then the tax revenues might increase a wee bit. But hey, as I say, as we all know, there is a magic money tree. It normally only works for government corruption and for war. But Labour's been shaking it to pay the public sector. Unfortunately, Osler Dane is giving them back some of what they've lost over the last 10 years. And it's not going to be enough to put disposable income in most of their pockets. That's for sure. What's going to happen is it'll bring them back up to a level where they can just about make their bills. Just about make their bills. So, been an interesting week so far. We get the GERS figures, which are absolute bollocks, and tells us we have a nominal deficit of 22 billion. And as you heard Professor Murphy say, that's because of economic mismanagement out with Scotland, because Scotland, local authorities and government legally have to balance their budgets. And as I say, that's a nominal deficit because it doesn't fucking exist. But what we are seeing quite quickly is that the economic stupidity of the last 14 years will continue. It will. Public sector will get a wee uplift this year, then fuck off for the rest of this parliament. That'll be cut. And of course, those cuts, because of the economic incompetence of the idiots in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, will have an effect here in Scotland, as we find our budget is cut. And that nominal, imaginary deficit will continue to grow. economic illiteracy. Economic illiteracy. What can you say? Right, what's going on in the rest of the world? Well, Donald Trump is having a go at his running mate, J.D. Vance, and he's blaming him for his polling rates plummeting. Huh? Israel is still sticking its two fingers up to the United Nations, and when they're being pulled up on the Security Council, the representatives playing video games on his iPhone. He's not paying any attention to people pointing out the atrocities that are being carried out in Israel. And of course, in Ukraine, the plucky little Ukrainians are still in Russia. 8 or 9 days in. And apparently they're advancing further into Russia. Further in they go, less fucking chance they've got of getting out again. But you have to admire it. It's plucky. Well, they've got the manpower to sustain it or no? Well. And of course, as we know, Musk, as it's come up in the comments, Brendan Scott Bryan, is still playing havoc on the world stage and ripping everybody a new arse, while allowing some of the most extreme idealisms to be peddled on his platform. Thankfully, I don't use his platform. Right, folks, we're 46 minutes in. As you know, the Indie Two Davies programmes are only 45 minutes long. I hope you found this one interesting. I hope you found it informative. And as I say, strap in. This bumpy ride's about to get a bit fucking bumpier. And I mean that. It really is. Any optimism being shown at this new government coming in, it'll be fucking gone by the end of the year. Wait till this budget hits. This is going to be funny stuff. So it is. So, buckle up, kids. And then, of course, mind we've got a shortage of food and medicines coming down the line. Thanks to the idiocy of our elite who wanted Brexit to protect their personal wealth. I mean, as I say, Westminster has lost its way. It's forgotten the primary duty of government. It thinks the primary duty of government is to protect the state and to protect their personal wealth, when the primary duty of government, of course, is to protect the people from everything. Because the people are the government's source of revenue. So a happy, healthy, well-educated population, interconnected with the rest of the world, means a thriving economy. A sick, poorly educated population, disconnected from the world, means third world status coming up. Now, I could go on and talk about the BRICS going to walk away from the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, but I'll leave that for another day. And I'll allow you to investigate that yourself. If you hadn't heard, the BRICS are talking about leaving the United Nations and the World Trade Organization because they seem to be a bias towards the developed nations in the West when it comes to trade deals and when it comes to international relations at the United Nations and when it comes to international law. So the BRICS are thinking about leaving it back. You can look into that one yourselves, okay? So please share this across your social media platforms. And somebody share this to my timeline, will you? Oh, you don't need to. I forgot I was live on Facebook. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting and informative. As I say, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube and you haven't already subscribed, that helps the algorithm and allows us to give more money to food banks. I want to thank all those who have made donations today and those who have made donations that have allowed us to help so much across Scotland. And I also want to thank the moderators. Now, there won't be an after chat right after the show because I'm going to work shortly. But I will come into Discord. Hugh, Mad Monk 33 will put a link in the comments on YouTube after the programme's finished. And using Facebook, if you want to join the Discord after chat at 10 o'clock tonight, jump onto the Two Davies YouTube channel, click on this particular video, and down below will be a link to the Discord server. Okay, now, as I say, thanks Facebook. 40 watching there, and I don't know how many are watching, but normally about 170 on YouTube. So great viewing figures. Viewing figures are holding steady and have been up. Have been slowly going up the same way the subscribership's been slowly going up. Thank you all very much. I'll catch you all on Monday. I think it's Monday. What day is that? Thursday. Catch you all on Monday to do it again. Bye for now.